So now that I've made a video yesterday including a part where I talk about how Nate Diaz fits into the 155 pound division, he's completely changed his mind and says that he's coming back at 170 pounds, as I quote, "NDA soldier, 170 pounds, come get you some of the real." I assume that he is not 170 pounds overall in the picture that he showed, and I think he's definitely talking about making a return in the welterweight division rather than 155. I don't know why, but he also mentioned and made sure to mention that for a Dustin Poirier bout, he will go down to 155 pounds. He does not care about cutting the weight for that situation. Maybe Nate Diaz is in a situation right now where he's got himself trimmed down and he's realizing, hang on a second here, I actually really don't want to cut down to 155 pounds because I'm near enough 6 feet tall and I'm a giant man. I belong in the welterweight division right now at this point in my career. I'm not going to make that weight cut like I used to earlier on when I was a younger man. Maybe that's what Nate Diaz is going through right now. Maybe the recent outcome of certain fights has maybe swayed his opinion on going down there. Maybe he expected Conor McGregor to win and that would give him an opportunity to jump right back in there with Conor McGregor as a winner in the lightweight division rather than a guy who's ranked number 6 coming off a loss. But Nate Diaz seems to be returning at 170 pounds in the welterweight division, so I thought I'd go through some of his options today. Of course, we know, as he mentioned, he would fight Dustin Poirier, and I'm sure Poirier wants to fight him as well. I just don't feel like the UFC will make the Dustin Poirier versus Nate Diaz matchup. I understand that I understand it's a very big money fight for the UFC, and sometimes the UFC makes exceptions to make some money for themselves, but Dustin Poirier is number 1 in the lightweight division right now. I don't see them giving Nate Diaz the number 1 contender in the lightweight division when you look at everyone else at lightweight that's been grinding their way through and trying to get to the top. I don't see them doing Poirier versus Diaz right now. I see them focusing at 155 on making sure that we have a bit more of a structure. Now that Khabib is gone with a champion at the end of it, they want to make Poirier in a title fight, I'm assuming. They're not going to probably make the Nate Diaz fight. So let's talk about welterweight matchups that make sense for Nate Diaz. Not Colby Covington, not Usman or Burns, not Leon Edwards, but maybe Leon Edwards, and I'll talk about that in a second. Right now in the welterweight division, you have a situation on your hands where Colby Covington is probably going to be taking on Jorge Masvidal, and Leon Edwards is taking on Khamzat Chimaev. Leon Edwards has been promised a title shot by Dana White if he does beat Khamzat Chimaev whenever they do fight in March, if they even do fight in March. Touch on wood as well, to be honest with you, just to be safe. If Leon Edwards wins and Colby Covington wins, both of them are going to feel like they've earned a title shot. The winner of that is then going to maybe think, you know what, if I'm not going to get a title shot, maybe I could get a big name fight. And I think maybe Nate Diaz could be looking at a Leon Edwards if Edwards does get past Khamzat Chimaev, because if Colby beats Masvidal, and it's a massive fight that sells a bunch of pay-per-views, they will remember what they saw last, and they will remember Colby Covington beating Jorge Masvidal and earning himself a rematch against Kamaru Usman, and how competitive the first fight was, and the fact that it was way more competitive than Usman versus Leon Edwards' first fight, and that Edwards fought a guy who wasn't even ranked, or is actually ranked number 15 for no fucking reason whatsoever, and Khamzat Chimaev hasn't done anything at welterweight whatsoever, but still ranked number 15 for some bizarre fucking reasons. Maybe they would do Nate Diaz versus Poirier at lightweight, in all honesty, but still, I feel like maybe there's an opportunity for Nate Diaz to swoop in and take a guy at the top, but I don't see that happening whatsoever. I think he might look for a Masvidal rematch right now, maybe, but I don't want to see that, and I swear to God, Jorge Masvidal. I swear to fucking God, you BMF. First hanging around with Jake Paul when you hate trash talkers, right? You BMF. If you sign a rematch with Nate Diaz right now when we're so close to you versus Covington, I will lose every bit of respect I had for Jorge Masvidal, and it is lowering by the day. And it would drastically drop if he does, in fact, go for the Nate Diaz rematch. But I think there's other options right now in the welterweight division. For example, a Michael Chiesa matchup is actually pretty winnable for Nate Diaz. Chiesa's got little to no stand-up whatsoever, and he's also pretty good on the ground, but he's not really a finisher. And Nate Diaz is amazing on the ground, of course. Like, he's a savage in jiu-jitsu, so maybe he'll look at the Michael Chiesa matchup and think to himself, listen, number 6 Michael Chiesa, I can jump right in and then look for my title elimination bout afterwards, or maybe the rematch with Jorge Masvidal afterwards. If Nate Diaz jumps in and beats Chiesa, I don't mind if he wants to fight Masvidal next. That's when I'll accept it. But the fact that he's unranked at welterweight, we need an approachable fight to get him into the rankings before we start talking about big fights down the line. Maybe he could take on if Woodley beats Luque in March. I'm not too sure how long Nate Diaz is going to want to wait for this comeback fight of his, to be honest with you guys, but it doesn't feel like he's in any kind of rush, because he never is in any kind of rush. He just seems to wander back into the fight game whenever he so pleases, and I rate him for that as well, to be honest with you. If Woodley beats Luke Kay, maybe Woodley calls out Nate Diaz, maybe Woodley calls out Nick Diaz as well. That's also a potential matchup. I'm joking, they're not going to do the brothers versus each other, but you know, they could do Woodley versus Nick Diaz. I doubt they'll do Nate versus Nick Diaz, and I doubt they'd even accept that fight anyway. He could maybe look for a bout with Damian Maia. Maybe the jiu-jitsu part of Nate Diaz's brain likes the look of the Damian Maia matchup. I feel like he has a ton of respect for grapplers, and that's why I'm kind of looking at those names in Michael Chiesa and Damian Maia as maybe a very reasonable jump into the division for Nate Diaz that he could potentially win against, because Damian Maia has not really looked the same recently. He's definitely an older guy looking for his... I mean, if you start calling out Diego Sanchez and you were a former title contender... You know, McGregor did it and it was a little bit worrying, but when you're Damian Maia and you're doing it at the welterweight division, I think it's very clear that Damian Maia is looking for a retirement bout right now. Maybe he would like to do it against Nate Diaz, but I'm seeing Michael Chiesa as a sneaky name that I feel like could get the fight with Nate Diaz right now. Another name that I need to mention, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I don't think they will do that, but that would be the technical BMF who started the whole thing in the first place in Nate Diaz versus the NMF, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. And I know it's not the Wonderboy Thompson versus Masvidal rematch for the actual NMF versus BMF title, but I would like to see a Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight with Nate Diaz, because in all honesty, I feel like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has done everything the UFC has asked him to do against absolute savage contenders on the rise, against Jeff Neal and then before that Vicente Luque, and he doesn't look like he's going to get rewarded with a big jump up the rankings that he's deserving, because even while beating Luque and Jeff Neal while being one position behind Jorge Masvidal in the rankings, he still doesn't go above Jorge Masvidal in the rankings, even though he beat Jorge Masvidal and schooled him. What's going on in the UFC? This is so dumb. But that's what we're in. That's the fucking sport we're in right now, I guess. Better fucking get used to it. But either way, Michael Chiesa is a good name. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is also a good name. If Edwards wins against Chimaev and they say, yeah, sorry about that, maybe not with the title shot, Leon Edwards, and then he gets a little bit angry, maybe, who knows, but it's Leon Edwards, so I really don't believe the UFC is going to give Leon Edwards a title shot if he beats Khamzat, so maybe they're going to do that with him. Hey, I know we didn't give you that title shot we promised, but here's Nate Diaz. It's a winnable fight for Nate Diaz as well. Leon Edwards is not some big power punching finisher. He's a technical guy. Maybe Diaz could go in there and push him against the cage, do some little things that Diaz does. Who knows? There's also some other matchups that he could take. Maybe a matchup with Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit. Are we looking that far down the rankings? Who knows if we're looking that far down the rankings? If Chimaev beats Leon Edwards, is he going to get a title shot? Probably not. Is he going to make a big call out? Maybe he calls out Nate Diaz as well. There's a lot of matchups to be made, but maybe Nate Diaz is looking, as I said before, those names down the bottom, Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit, some of these names. I'm sure if Nate Diaz signed to fight Condit, they probably just remove Lawler from the rankings and put Condit in there, because they just make a fucking shambles of things nowadays. But still, all good. I don't think he's fighting Li Jingliang, Jeff Neal, or Bilal Muhammad, or Neil Magny. Sorry, Neil Magny. I know you said you want to slap Khamzat Chimaev on site, but we just watched you pull Michael Chiesa on top of you for about 5 fucking rounds. The only way Nate Diaz would say he's coming back at 170 pounds is if he knew that he had a matchup in mind. I sneakily think it's fucking Michael Chiesa. Or the winner of Masvidal Covington, which would even be it'd be a bigger disgrace, in all honesty. He also kind of shit-talked Gilbert Burns a little bit at one point by showing the Dan Hooker KO of Gilbert Burns and saying, like, this is your welterweight title contender right now, and Gilbert Burns, he got KO'd by Dan Hooker, and a lot of people saw that as him calling out Dan Hooker and saying, you know, I want to fight Dan Hooker, he just KO'd Gilbert Burns, or he has a KO over Gilbert Burns, but it might have been just him taking a shot at Gilbert Burns, who's a jiu-jitsu guy. A lot of these jiu-jitsu guys in the jiu-jitsu circles have little aggressions towards each other, competitive-wise, you know what I mean? They both want to be the best in their field and what they're good at, and I feel like maybe a Burns, if he loses to Usman, could be a Nate Diaz matchup as well, but I just don't know anything else other than maybe Wonderboy Thompson or Michael Chiesa right now. It seems like Nate Diaz is kind of stuck for options. Maybe Robbie Lawler is all I have to say. Can we just do the Robbie Lawler fight versus Nate Diaz? I'd watch it. Nate Diaz would probably win right now because Lawler basically did nothing in his fight against Neil Magny other than show up for a paycheck, let's be real. Maybe they could use Robbie Lawler's name to get Nate Diaz into the rankings, because let's not forget, if Nate Diaz does beat Robbie Lawler at welterweight, he has a win over Pettis, who has a win over Wonderboy Thompson. That's going to skewer him up the rankings a little bit, in my opinion. We'll see how things go down. But if Khamzat Chimaev can be ranked number fucking 15 at welterweight for beating Reese McKee, a lightweight from Cage Warriors, then maybe Nate just gets ranked magically overnight in place of Neil Magny. And after Magny's last performance, I would not complain, in all honesty. Even though I'd hate it to happen, as long as it would happen to Neil Magny's dumbass, then maybe it'd be a nice thing. But you know what? We'll see how things go down. Luke A called out Nate Diaz. A lot of hidden gems going on right now, the more I look in this welterweight division. Luke A called out Nate Diaz after his fight with Randy Brown. Obviously, he was never going to get it then. But if he whoops up on Tyron Woodley and gets a big statement and now he's in the top 6, top 7, calling out Nate Diaz again, maybe things are a little bit more likely. I don't know. There's a lot of matchups that possibly could be made. Maybe it's even Conor McGregor at 170. I don't know. Maybe they want to finish the trilogy at 170 pounds. Maybe he's mentioning to McGregor just overall, like, I'm not cutting down to 155. Like, if you want to do this, let's do it at 170. I would much rather prefer them doing it at 55, please. If I just have a real big thing about earning title shots. You kind of have to win a fight in your weight class first, which is the reason why McGregor versus Poirier 2 was not for a belt, because McGregor beat Cerrone, who was out of his weight class. I just feel like you should win a fight and weigh in for that fight at the weight that you're going to be fighting for the belt at afterwards, if you plan to, against a guy who's actually in your weight class at 155. But if they want to do McGregor versus Nate Diaz at 170 for the trilogy, go ahead. I don't even know what the fuck to say anymore, to be honest with you guys. I've just rattled off everything I can fucking think of, and nothing makes sense. Masvidal might fight him in a rematch. I am sick of it. Honestly, Masvidal is, yeesh. Masvidal used to be one of my favourite fighters, and I've lost so much respect for Masvidal. I used to love Masvidal, man. One of my favourites way back in the day. A lot of people jump on the train when Masvidal started flying knee KOing people. I called it, by the way, but you know what? A lot of people jumped on the train after the Masvidal KO and all of his KO over Darren Till and stuff like this. But I've been a Masvidal fan way back in the day, since his like appearances on Ariel Helwani, the Genghis Khan films situations. He's always been one of my secret favourite fighters that was just never good enough to break through. So I wasn't really fully invested in him. But now he seems like he was doing quite good, and I kind of got invested in him a little bit. But Masvidal, what happens, man? A little bit of money and all your morals go? Jorge the hypocrite? I don't know. But we'll see how it goes. Nate Diaz at 170, I guess. I swear if it's Masvidal, I dare them! I dare them to make the rematch. Colby versus Masvidal, tough. He ain't escaping this one, okay? I like Masvidal. He needs to fight Colby on tough. I'm getting furious about this. If this somehow interjects, I don't even want to put it into reality. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Apparently Nate Diaz is at 170 now. Thank you for making me make a whole fucking video about how you fit into 155 and then saying you're at 170. You fucking Stockton soy boy. Whatever. Goodbye. See you later. Yep.